Hello and welcome to part 9 of the Jeep tutorial series. In this last part we went in and added the headlights and the turn signals and the steering wheel. So now we're going to hopefully finish up with our modeling part and go ahead and add the speedometer and the fuel gauge and all that stuff that's on the gauges right here on the dashboard, and then the brake pedals and the gear shift and emergency brake and all that stuff. So hopefully we can get all the modeling finished up in this part, and then in part 10 we can go on and start actually texturing this guy. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select one of these headlights there, and this I'm going to repurpose this yet again, Shift D like we did on the brakes, and I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees. There we go. And this is going to be our gauges up here. So let's take a look at some reference here. We have 5 gauges here. So we got the main, most likely the speedometer. Let's look at Willys Jeep gauges. There we go. A little bit better. So we got our speedometer, our fuel level, our amount of volts that we have going through there, our temperature gauge, and our oil pressure. And then a couple of buttons here. So we got 5 main gauges there. So let's move this into position on the dashboard. About right there. Okay, maybe move this up a bit, a little over. Let's see in relation to the steering column. It's right there beside it. Okay, so our smaller ones are going to be almost right there on it. So maybe move this a little further this way, maybe down a little bit. And let's hit our 5 button so we can see between those seats and things a little better. And I'm going to Shift D, duplicate that, drag it over on the X-axis, make it a little smaller, drag that down. Then we're going to Shift D, duplicate that up, maybe make it a little bigger. And let's look again at our reference. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. Okay, so I was going to duplicate those both at the same time, but since they have a little bit of a offset there at the top, I'm just going to go ahead and do it manually, like so. Alrighty, looking good, looking good. Looks like we might have. Alright, let's go back to our perspective view. Yeah, this is kind of offset a bit. Let's straighten these out. And maybe this one a little bit further. Okay. So that'll work for that. Pardon me. Now, we'll go ahead and add let's add our gas pedal and our brake pedal and our clutch. So let's go back to our references, and we'll say pedals. And here's a good image. Okay, we got our main gas pedal, our clutch over here, and our brake right there. So the brake and the clutch look almost exactly the same. Matter of fact, they do look exactly the same as far as I can tell. But the gas pedal will be a lot different. So let's make the brake pedal first, or the clutch, whichever one you want to call it. Let's just come over here and just make it out in space. We'll just say a plane, and we'll scale it down. Go to our top view. Scale it on the y-axis a bit. Now we don't have to get real detailed with this because, like the radiator, we're really not going to get in there and see it too much. So we just basically need a placeholder. I was trying to add loops to it, but I guess since it's just one face, it doesn't have a way to do that. So let's just select the edges, tab into edit mode. That's another reason I couldn't add a loop. There we go. I have to be in edit mode. Okay. Scale that out and take a peek at the looks like it doesn't have much curve horizontally, but it does vertically. So let's add a couple of there, maybe scale them on the y-axis a bit. Select these edges, drag them down. Maybe add one more loop right there in the middle. Drag that up just ever so slightly. Maybe make these a little bigger on the y-axis. Then we'll select everything and extrude it down so it actually has a little bit of thickness. And then I'm going to add a cube while we're still in edit mode. Scale that down. This is going to be the shaft thing that the pedal is mounted to. So go ahead and drag that down. and maybe put it at an angle. And then let's add some extra edges there, so it's. I'll tell you what we can do. We're not going to be seeing this part of the cylinder thing there, so we'll just delete that. Make things easier when we go to add seams to it. Go ahead and delete that face. And that's probably good. Let's add a couple horizontally here, so when we add the subdivision surface to it, it doesn't start looking silly. It'd be a little easier if I do it from the view. Okay, so this will be both our brake and our clutch. So we'll grab that, move it into position there. Let's go to our wireframe view so we can see what we're doing a little better. Rotate that, scale it down. And we need to scale it down quite a bit more. Drag it this way. This will be our clutch, I guess. Drag it up and out. Looks like I need to make that frame piece a little bit bigger, a little longer. So select these, actually just the vertices. Let's go to our side view. Select those. Back to wireframe. Drag that down until it goes through the firewall. There we go. And that's probably coming out a little too much. So let's move that down a little closer to the floor, and maybe we can move the other parts out some. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so let's duplicate this over. Shift D, duplicate it on the x-axis. There we go. And it's going to be on the other side of the column. So it looks like they just need to come over and then up some. Maybe not quite so high. There we go. And then we'll duplicate one of these. Shift D for the gas pedal, and then just tab into edit mode. And just select that piece, Control L. And I'm just gonna, let's go to our side view so we can see what we're doing a little better. Rotate, let's rotate it this way, because the gas pedal is not rounded at all, except on the corners. So we just need to straighten this, flatten it back out as much as we can. Tell you what we can do is just select all of these vertices on the top, SZ0, and then select all of them on the bottom. We could just go ahead and just delete the bottom and just duplicate the top, but this will work too. There we go. And we select one, Control L, and let's make it, instead of wide, let's make it thin, and then back to our side view, make it a little longer. Quite a bit longer, actually. And then rotate it up. Okay, so let's move this one down to where its angle is kind of on the floor. There we go. And maybe this way some. Maybe rotate it on the y-axis just a bit. There we go. Okay, so there's our clutch, our brake, and our gas. Now, if you've ever driven a standard, you know that the clutch is very important to changing gears. Yeah, so go ahead and set smooth shading on all of those. And speaking of gears, we need gear shifts. And one thing, those look like they're too dark, so let's select everything, Control N, get those normals the way they need to be on each one of those. Control N, there we go, and Control N, there we go. Alright, so now we need our gear shifts. So let's look at that. Willys Jeep gear shift. And it looks like it has quite a few different ones. Not honestly sure what they all do. I know one of them switches gears, one of them probably engages the 4x4. Not sure what the others would do unless it's got a different type of transmission or something like that. Overdrive perhaps. But that looks like a pretty good cluster there that we can model off of. We just basically need to make one main one, then we can just duplicate it over. So it's going to be pretty easy to do. All we need is basically just a cylinder. Tab in edit mode, scale that way down, scale it way up, maybe down a little further, scale it up, and then we'll just duplicate or just extrude up from one end just a bit, scale it up, another one. This is just going to be kind of a lip for it. There we go, scale that up. This is just going to be a rounded maybe scale this down a little bit. Okay, so we have our gear shift. Let's make the ball on top a little bit bigger. Okay, so now we can scale the whole thing down. Drag it over into place. And drag this over into place. And then we're coming up out of the hump for the drive shaft. There. Maybe scale it down a little bit further. Rotate it some so it's kind of facing the driver. So maybe on the y-axis just a bit. And we can also go ahead and create the boot that goes around the end of it. Just add a loop there, add a loop there, and just select the whole bottom part, scale that up. Then scale it on the y-axis. Since we're at an angle, we'll have to hit y, or actually I guess it'll be the z-axis. Just hit z twice, and then we can rotate around its normals. There, like that, then sz twice. And you can see that blue line kind of changes direction. And that means we can move it along its, oops. Do the same thing to move it. You can't see the arrows, but if you hit G and then Z twice, you can move it along its normals as well. So there we go, and then select this whole bottom loop. Drag that on the Z-axis until it goes all the way through that floor panel. There we go. Maybe make it a little smaller. Maybe a little longer. There we go. And how many do we need altogether? 4 different ones, I believe. Yes. One of them's got a bend in it. Well, 2 of them, I guess, have bends. One of them's really small. So let's go to our top view. Wireframe. Shift D. Duplicate this over. Like so. And this one will go ahead and have the bend in it. We've got a loop, couple of loops there towards the middle of that. Select this and then just kind of move it down and rotate it. And let's rotate this here. Stupid pop-ups, I hate them. Java, leave me alone. Can't you see I'm busy? Okay, and then a couple of smaller ones over to the side. Let's grab the original one, Shift D, duplicate that over on the x-axis. Gonna rotate it and make it a little smaller. And make sure it's still coming through the floor. And this one had a bend in it too, I believe. Yeah, slightly the opposite direction though. Okay, and one more. Just a real small one right there next to the other one. So we'll rotate the original again. Scale it way, oops, not that far. I'll tell you what, let's select the Jeep itself and let's make this whole part right here a little bigger. Let's get our face select tool. There we go. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so now I can move this one a little closer in. Maybe scale it up just a bit. And that one. Okay. So there we go. Let's go ahead and save this. And it looks like we have all our gears in there, our gear shifts and everything, our gauges. Let's see what else we need. Anything else before we call modeling done? Jeep gear dashboard. I think we probably have a glove box in here somewhere over on this side. Yeah, that's not too hard. Just create a little panel to go on top of it. We can just select this face here and just Shift D, duplicate that, and then we'll extrude that on the y-axis to come out, give it some thickness. And let's Control L, select everything there, scale that on the x-axis to make it a little smaller. Then maybe drag it on the x-axis, drag it down there. And we'll add a couple of loops around it. Get it squared off on the edges. There we go. And maybe drag it down. Pardon me, just drag it down just a bit. And bump it up to where it's going through the dash. Okay. Now, I think we're pretty well done. Let's go ahead and save that and take a cursory look at some more reference. We don't have that gas can. I guess we can go ahead and throw one of those on there real quick. So let's go to our rear view, Control 1, put our 3D cursor right there where that's going to go. Go to our side view, back over here. And this time we're just going to create a cube. Tab into edit mode, scale it down until it's about the right thickness, and scale it up on the Z-axis. And let's go back to our rear view, scale it on the X-axis. And I don't think it's going to be a solid rectangle. It almost is, but it's going to have a little bit of place for the spout and the handle. So let's add a loop here, and a loop right over here. And tell you what, let's add one more loop. Oops, not there. Undo. There we go. Add a loop right there. And then go to our vertex select. Select that, drag that down. And then we can come into our top view and add a couple loops in here. So we have a place to add a handle. Drag that up. Actually, tell you what, let's grab this whole top. There we go. And maybe move this loop over to the side. And then we can grab this face and this face and go and extrude those. Just hit the E button and then just click out. Then scale that down. Not on the Y-axis, so we're going to shift Y. So it's only scaling it on the X and Z. You can see it's just making it smaller. Make it a little wider again. Drag that down. Go ahead and delete those faces there now. And we'll create some new ones. Select that bottom edge there. There we go. That. Select the correct one. There we go. That and square it off. Okay, then we'll add a couple loops inside it. There we go. So when we turn on the subdivision surface, it doesn't look quite as bad. Add a couple loops here, and there, and there, and there. And then we'll add one around the top, there, and then one around the bottom, there. Okay. And then we're not going to mess with putting a hole there for the gas cap. We'll just put a cap on there. But let's see what we're looking like here. Keep hitting the wrong one. That's not exactly what that looks like, but at this point I think it's close enough. So all we need to do now is create a holster for it and a cap, I guess. So we'll put one more loop right there so get a nice edge on both sides there. Okay, so still in edit mode, Shift A. Let's add a cylinder. Scale this down, scale it down on the Z-axis, drag that up, Control 1 to go to our rear view, rotate that till it fits that angle. Okay, Control R. Now, as you can tell, I'm kind of getting impatient with wanting to finish this. I'm not really taking all the measures I should be to get it as good looking as it should. So I encourage you to have more patience and work on this. And make your vehicle look, if you're doing a Jeep too, make yours look as realistic as you can. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn that to smooth shading. There we go. That looks all right. Let's add a couple of loops in here. Looked a little funny there. Okay, so I'm basically going to duplicate the the holster around the spare tire. I'm just going to select a piece of that, Control L, go to our top view, Shift D, duplicate that over on the other side, about to the middle, and then I'm just going to grab the ends of it, the edges of it, bring those down, and then Control L, Shift H, hide everything else, grab that edge, drag that over, like so, and then grab the front of it, drag that down. Get a nice corner over here. Okay. So So on this one, however, we can get rid of that panel on the back. We don't really need that. So we can just select all of those vertices there and just go ahead and delete them. And it'll just delete that from there. And then we should probably go and put a strap over the top of it, like you can see in the reference here. But as I said, I'm getting impatient with working on this, so I'm going to skip that. And there's one more thing we need to do. We don't need to do it. You could do it if you wanted to, and that is for the canopy, the rag top, as it were. It usually has a frame that's kind of folded down around the back edge here. If we look at our reference, this one doesn't have one, so I'm not going to put one on there. You can put one on there if you like, using the, like this, for this one, for example. Those fold up, and then the canvas will attach to the top of it, so they have a roof over them. But I'm not going to mess with that. So yes, 21 minutes, that's good to go. Modeling we can call done. So in part 10, we will come in and start adding some materials and textures to this guy. So really coming along. I'm really liking how this is looking. So again, thanks for watching. This has been all of part 9, all of the modeling section. And again, in part 10, we'll get into adding the textures and materials. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.